Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, et merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the other witnesses for your interesting points of view, and also to the members of this committee for your invitation. It's an honour to be here with you and to share a number of notions and the work that journalists are doing that we are focusing on. And I'd just like to acknowledge all these civilians who are working so hard to assist journalists in danger. I'd like to thank you for this hard and complicated work. My name is Pulfer, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Human Rights Journalists. This is a not-for-profit organisation that seeks to help journalists and promote access to human rights worldwide.
It's a Canadian-based media development organisation that works to promote access to human rights worldwide. We do this through strengthening media's ability to cover human rights stories in places where commitment to media freedoms and human rights is fragile. Currently, we do this work across 17 countries, including Mali, Iraq, and Yemen. Over the past 6 months, we have worked to evacuate journalists under threat from Afghanistan, and this is the work that I want to focus on in this discussion. But I wouldn't be a good journalist if I didn't start this talk with a story. And so I'm going to share with you the story of Khatara Ahmadi, a female TV anchor with Zan TV. Zan TV was an all-woman television station based in Kabul. It produced news and feature content in Afghanistan up until August 15th of last year. After the fall of Kabul, Khatara and her colleagues went into hiding. They knew that as women who'd had a high public profile, they would have targets on their backs. Journalists for Human Rights evacuated Khatara and some of her colleagues from Kabul in October of 2021. Ever since then, she has been stuck in Islamabad. As an Afghan refugee, every door is closed to her, bar the one she went through to get to Pakistan. When she arrived, Khatara was pregnant. Within weeks, she miscarried. Khatara desperately needs a permanent place to settle. Yet months of effort by a coalition of media freedoms organizations, including Journalists for Human Rights, has so far secured nothing. She is just one of 500 journalists, women leaders, and human rights defenders and their family members that Journalists for Human Rights has worked to help since August 15th from Afghanistan. In recent weeks, JHR has been approached in a similar way by increasing numbers by Ukrainian, Russian, and Belarusian journalists, all in the same desperate situation. The reporting work that they did before Putin's invasion of Ukraine has put them in danger. They need options urgently. Luckily, you, the members of this committee, are in a position to help provide them with options. And so I'd like to recommend that Canada take immediate, concrete action for journalists fleeing conflict and persecution, journalists like Khatara, by creating an evergreen program of emergency visas for journalists. This is in line with recommendations from both the high-level legal panel of experts advising the Media Freedom Coalition, of which Canada is co-chair, and also IFEX, from whom you're going to hear later in this discussion. On media freedom and human rights globally, we're seeing a global erosion in the state of media freedom through COVID-19. And the rise of authoritarianism threatens democracies and human rights worldwide. As Freedom House put it in their most recent report, the global order is nearing a tipping point. And if democracy's defenders do not work together to help guarantee freedom for all people, the authoritarian model will prevail. What can we do to roll this situation back? Organizations such as Journalists for Human Rights intervene to strengthen independent journalists' ability to cover human rights. Since 2016, starting in South Sudan, Journalists for Human Rights partnered with Global Affairs Canada to strengthen the quote-unquote enabling environment in which journalists work. This means a very holistic form of media development work across government, media, and civil society, ensuring and building on society-wide support for independent journalists covering human rights stories. We also train journalists on how to safely call out and debunk the kinds of disinformation campaigns that Maria Ressa referenced earlier in this discussion. Never has this kind of work been more needed than right now. Earlier today, for example, Novaya Gazeta, the last independent newspaper in Russia, closed its doors under pressure from Russian state censors. We need to ensure, in the face of gross state repression, that newspapers like Novaya Gazeta are not censored and silenced, but rather find ways to live on. We need to ensure, in the face of gross manipulation of information, that citizens in places like Russia, Belarus, and Afghanistan have access to facts and truth. The best way to counterattack the trend to authoritarianism and decaying support for human rights and liberal democracy is through support for independent journalism covering human rights issues. The best way to fight the state-sponsored lies of regimes such as Vladimir Putin's is with facts and truth. And that brings me to my second ask. And again, this is in line with IFEX's petition to the Media Freedoms Coalition in February, calling on Canada to step up and put aside up to 1% of its international development support towards this kind of media development work. This level of support is necessary in order to fund the kind of holistic, sector-wide networking and capacity building work that ensures those enduring conflict have access to reliable information about what is happening through the conflict and beyond, in particular, information on human rights. And I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pulfer.